Hello, Janesville, and welcome back to Park Place Views, the monthly program that aims to keep residents informed by highlighting the people, places, and partners of the City of Janesville. As always, this program is brought to you by the City of Janesville and JATV Media Services. I'm your host, Nick Faust, and I'm the assistant to the City Manager in the City Manager's office. Now, in last month's episode, we sat down with Lahner, Downtown Janesville, Inc.'s new director, and as her group works hand in hand with the city and our other terrific community partners, Lahner helped us learn all about what is happening in our downtown and what exciting news is to come. Now, today I'm looking forward to being joined by City Manager Kevin Lahner. The City Council selected Kevin as Janesville's 11th City Manager in March following an extensive recruitment. Now in his third month on the job, I'm looking forward to hearing from City Manager Lahner about his time so far and his vision for our community moving forward. But first, a little bit more about Kevin. City Manager Lahner previously served as the City Administrator for the City of Waukesha, a role he held since 2015. Under his leadership, Waukesha saw 8 consecutive city budgets, increasing the city's fund balance and improved the municipality's financial stability. Before his time in Waukesha, Kevin served 7 years as the city administrator for the city of Burlington and held roles in the communities of Keller and Flower Mound, Texas. City Manager Lahner holds a master's degree in public administration from the University of North Texas and a BS in communications from the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point. Thanks for joining us today, Kevin.
Thanks for having me.
Now, I know I rattled quite a bit off at the top there, but before we start, I wanted to give the chance for you to tell the community a bit more about yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think that for me, I'm a Wisconsin guy. I grew up in Eau Claire, in and around Eau Claire. Spent some time up north, and really enjoy everything about Wisconsin. So I'm an outdoors guy. I fish, I hunt, I camp, all those types of things. I love all 4 seasons, and really enjoy everything about the state. As you mentioned, I went to UW-Stevens Point. Fun fact, I was going to be a game warden. I changed my mind.
Yeah.
I'm not a game warden, obviously. I'm sitting in this chair right now. But I graduated from there with a communications degree. I actually spent some time as a newspaper reporter for a while before I found my way to city government. And I became a member of the town of Flower Mound staff many years ago, and my first job was a public information officer, so I was kind of a PR guy for the city. And after a little while working in that role, I had the opportunity to move into the city manager's office as the assistant to the city manager.
Look at that.
And after that, the rest is history. I've enjoyed every minute of working in city management. Personal side, I've got 4 kids, twins, that are 18 and in college, and an 11-year-old son and an 8-year-old daughter, and my wife, Jessica.
Wow, so a busy man, professionally and personally. And, well, Kevin, besides our terrific outdoor recreation amenities here in Wisconsin's Park Place, I think folks maybe would be interested to know what attracted you to Janesville, what brought you to our community?
Yeah, it was really, I think, just a good opportunity at a good time. And what the conversation that I had with the city council as the recruitment was going through was that I read the job description and the position profile, and it literally felt to me as I was reading it as if it was written for me. And that sounds, I don't know if that sounds a little arrogant or whatever, but it was one of those things, is that the community was looking for somebody who had knowledge in or had done the things that I had done over the course of my career. And as I got here and I met folks, it just felt like a really, really good opportunity for me. And I love the city and what's going on here. I love what's happening in the area of economic development. I love the connection with the business and the nonprofit groups that the city has and how closely that we work together. And the community as itself just feels like a very good and dynamic place with a lot of opportunities and activities happening, and a connection with the community that's really palpable when you're working in the city manager's office.
Yeah, that is wonderful to hear, and certainly, hopefully, something to think of for folks moving forward is the fact that we are a very exciting community, and the prospects for the future are very good for for Janesville, and we're happy you saw that, of course. And not to put you even more on the hot seat, but I will ask, what are your first impressions of the city staff, the city organization?
I think that the community of Janesville is very lucky because the city staff is incredibly professional and is doing great work here in the city. And, I've worked in a lot of organizations, and it's just really, really a pleasure to work with the folks that are here. Everybody and all the different staff members I've been able to interact with. Yeah. It's been excellent. And you can see it throughout the organization. You can see it in the pride of work. You can see it in the interactions with others, and it's just been great.
Yeah. Our folks certainly love what they do and take great pride in the service they provide to our community. And now perhaps a bit of an insider question for the real local government heads, but what interests you, Kevin, specifically about the council manager form of municipal government? Because you were an administrator in your previous role.
Yeah, so that's actually, that is inside baseball. But, I think that the city manager form of government is the most efficient way to run an organization. And I was exposed to city manager form of government when I started my career in Texas, because that's the primary form of government there in Texas. In fact, it has some of the largest city manager form of governments in the entire United States. And so I was very fortunate to start in that environment. And in Wisconsin, for whatever reason, we have all these hybrid forms of government. Yeah. Like there's no one singular form that kind of dominates. And I think that in terms of city manager form of government, the things that the community benefits from is that you get a well-educated professional that's going to be able to come in and operate the organization in a very efficient and effective manner. And I think that connection with the city council that has a global view of the entire city, the fact that the city council members are elected at large, I think is very positive. And I think that helps the whole organization function better for the community. And what that results in for the residents is just a very high level of service from their city government, a very efficient city government, which helps keep taxes low and fees reasonable. And I think that's what you see in that sort of form of government. So I think that it's, I think it's the best way to run a city.
Yes.
Not shocking. But I think that if you compare and contrast it with other types of organizations, the city manager form of government is really the way to go.
Yeah, I think the proof is certainly in the pudding there, and we've been experiencing that for about a century on here in Janesville. So very, very fortunate to have such a robust council manager form of government established. And maybe taking a step back then from my insider question, what, Kevin, are your guiding principles as a municipal leader, as a city leader?
Yeah, I think that what I start with transparency. That's a big one. And being an authentic person with those that you deal with. And so one of the things that I really focus on with city staff and with the community is telling the story and telling my story and to some extent being vulnerable, letting people really know how you feel about things and that sort of thing. That's one of the biggest guiding principles for me, is that authenticity. The other thing, obviously, is integrity. We're running a public organization here. Right. It's no surprise that you have to operate with the highest level of principles, that you're in the public trust, that you're dealing with taxpayer dollars that need to be expended judiciously. And I think that is obvious there. And then the last thing I would just say is community engagement. I think that for a organization, a public organization of this kind, especially in this day and age, is that we need to find different ways to connect with our community and bring people together to help solve problems. And I think that those are the three things that are the planks of my leadership style that really help guide me day to day.
Yeah, and it's good to hear. Certainly, engagement is near and dear for me, but also the fact that you are an approachable leader, as you mentioned, with the vulnerability, and then just what a gift, how sacred we hold the public trust as civil servants as well. So I think in thinking about where you perhaps learned these guiding principles, I would ask who influenced you the most in your career in public service?
There was quite a few folks. the folks that I would point to is number one, the very first city manager I worked for, a guy named Van James. He was as Texas could be. I've described him before.
Yeah.
He wore creased jeans and cowboy boots with some sort of exotic skin every single day to work. But he was just one of those folks who gave me the opportunity to experience city government wherever I wanted. So anything I wanted to do, he just let me go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
And he gave me opportunities to fail, and he gave me opportunities to succeed. And it just was wonderful to be a wonderful learning experience for me. So that was great. And then just the way he operated the city and what he tried to bring to the organization, I thought was really great. Another guy who is a good friend of mine now is a guy named Mark Hafner. And so he was the police chief when I was working as the assistant city manager and then eventually the interim city manager in Keller, Texas. And he, at the time, was just really skilled at developing leaders. And so he had a pipeline of leadership in his department where folks would go through that leadership, and then eventually they would go off and become chiefs in other communities because they were so sought after because of the training that they were provided. And really teaching those folks how to lead and how to lead courageously, I thought was a huge lesson for me coming up early in my career. And since then, we've reconnected and we've stayed connected and just really learned from each other. He actually has become the city manager of Keller, Texas now. And so we talk all the time about, things that he's dealing with and the things that I'm dealing with. And he's just a tremendous leader in that regard. And then the last person I would mention is a guy named Lyle Drescher. He was the city manager of Keller, Texas when I first started. And again, really took folks under their wing and really tried to convey knowledge and experience to me as I was going up and provided me all sorts of support in that regard. So those are the main folks. I had the opportunity to spend time with the former executive director of the International City Management Association, so my professional association, when I went through a leadership program with him, a guy named Bob O'Neill. Just a tremendous person, had been a city manager and county manager for years and years, and really helped me drill down into what my strengths were and development of that sort of thing. So those are the folks that I think of when I think of mentors and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and again, really cool to see those principles come forth from those in the field before you, and you carry that forward and place an emphasis on those things. And I guess then, Kevin, as you settled in, like I said, July I think is a few months on the job for you here. What has been your approach? You're a seasoned professional in the field, but what's your approach to learning the city manager role in Janesville then?
Yeah, so I am, trying to do whatever I can to meet with as many people as I can. And so I'm a person who's going to listen and learn before I make any decisions related to the city as we go forward. To the best that I can.
Right.
Sometimes, sometimes something's got to be done. And so I've been meeting with community stakeholders on a regular basis, continuing to do that all through these first several months. And then I've been trying to connect with the staff as well, so learning about what they do as well. And so I've been meeting with members of the staff. I have ride-along scheduled with the police department. I have meetings being scheduled with the fire department. I've been out to the services center to talk to those folks and really trying my best to glean as much knowledge as I can about the community. And then the other thing that I do is I walk around and I drive around a lot.
Yeah.
And so I just spend time trying to walk to the different places I need to, like walking to lunch or whatever in the downtown area, obviously. Yeah. But then also I'll take time to go and drive to a park and walk around and that sorts of stuff, and just to get a feel of the lay of the land and how things look and how they operate, and then drive through different other areas of our community, both neighborhoods and then development areas too, to really see what it looks like and what's going on there. So that's kind of my approach.
Yeah, good to know you're not, of course, not cooped up on the 4th floor over there at 18 North Jackson, but actually boots on the ground and certainly a lot of folks to meet with as a full service municipality. So that's good to hear. And then thinking, Kevin, a little more globally about the challenges facing city governments in Wisconsin, and then what you think some of the opportunities are with, I think, the caveat that you have been closely involved in the recent news of finally getting shared revenue increases to municipalities across the state, which has been a Sisyphean task at times, I think, for local government leaders. But what are some obstacles and what are some opportunities for us?
Yeah, I mean, so the shared revenue bill is really game changing for communities across the state.
Yeah.
And there, I'm disappointed. There was some fundamental issues within the formula that needed to be changed to benefit Janesville that didn't get changed. But we're going to keep on working on those,
yes.
And we are benefiting in a significant way with the shared revenue bill, and that's a good thing. I think that Wisconsin and the city of Janesville in particular have pretty similar challenges when it comes to the state. Number one, retention recruitment.
Yeah.
That's a huge thing. People going into the fields of local government is not as much as it used to be.
Yeah.
And we have to cultivate talent. We have to draw in people to our organizations and show them what a great place the city is to work in. I try to do that as best as I can. I'm really involved with my professional associations, and then I teach a class in the UW Milwaukee graduate program, and just really trying to stay connected and draw people into the city, into city government. The issue of housing, it's a nationwide issue. It's an issue in Wisconsin. It's an issue in Janesville, affordable housing in particular. We got to do a better job of finding folks places that they can afford to live and helping to facilitate that process, right? And so it's difficult because cities are not developers,
right?
And so we have to be that conduit, that organization that makes connections and then helps make projects happen through the tools that we have in the toolbox. And I think that we've done a really good job of starting to develop those tools here in Janesville, and I think that we need to continue to push that forward because that's just a huge issue in our community and everywhere in the state. I think that those are some really big things that you can focus on. I think that we have to stay ahead of, and I think we've been doing a very good job of tackling the issues of homelessness and kind of the core problems that start those issues and trying to work on those and that sort of thing. And I think that, I mean, those are the ones I can think of off the top of my head. I'm sure there's many more.
Yeah. A lot of heady topics to consider, and I know things that hopefully the city's been able to make some progress on, but really areas that we're going to need real partnership with our state leaders and, as you mentioned, our many great community partners and nonprofits that work hand in hand with places like housing and issues there. And I also tell folks that the city of Janesville is, of course, a lean, mean fighting machine when it comes to budgetary measures because, as you mentioned, with the inequitable formula for our state shared revenue, we have just had to be efficient and effective, and I'd like to think we maintain both. But I'd mention up top about your consecutive budgets in Waukesha and improving the financial position there. What is your approach to creating an effective and cost-efficient city budget?
Yeah, I think that what drives a city budget is the organizational values, and I talk to people that the budget is a values document. What you're spending money on is what the community values as an organization. That's driven by our strategic plan, and I think that there is a very well thought out, vision that's presented in the strategic plan. But when it comes to the actual budget implementation, you're looking at those values and then allocating resources based upon those things. I have in my career, I've taken different approaches to budgeting. I use what it's like I like to call like a modified zero-based budgeting type of approach, where there are certain things that are going to cost a certain amount of money that are just givens. And so an example is energy costs. Like you're going to spend money on electricity and heat and all those sorts of things, and you try to predict what the increases are going to be year over year, and those are follow along. But if you're proposing a new program, you're proposing additional services, then there's a process that you should go through to justify those requests, and then prove out that it's going to be effective for the organization.
Yeah.
And you look at those things, and you look at the results, and you evaluate the results of existing programs as you go through the budget process, and then also what could happen with new. And that includes, new positions and that sort of thing as well. But that's kind of always been my approach.
Yeah.
I think that we always need to take a really good close look at what we're doing currently, and making sure that what we're doing is the most effective, the most efficient, that it's accomplishing the goal that it was set out to do. And if it's not working, then you find something new, or you move to a different program or something like that. So that's my approach generally.
Yeah, being proactive on that, and remembering that, again, a city budget is a kind of a community's value statement. It's where the budget meets the mouth, you put things to work.
I mean, we are spending the most of our funds on the things that touch people the most directly.
Right.
And so when you think about it, building roads, fixing roads, police service, fire service, garbage service. These are things that are super important for every community, and the vast majority of our funds are going to those areas.
Yeah.
But we also need to remember that we also provide opportunities for people to connect within our community. And so we have to take the moment to say, how do these park and rec programs work? And what audiences or what groups of folks are able to utilize these different services, and bringing the folks together that way. Yeah. And you have to draw that balance. But, the things that we're spending our money on, the vast majority of our money on, are the things that touch people directly. Yeah. Those basic, rubber meets the road type of services.
Real community necessities, and then thinking and keeping in mind those quality of life things that really make a community home. And I think that transitions well into my next question, which would be, how do you feel as city government provides the best possible services to its community members? And is that constant analysis? Or?
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things that, I learned over the years, is that you need to do the program analysis on a regular basis. You need to do community surveys on a regular basis to make sure that what you're providing is meeting the needs of the community, and getting input back from the residents and the business community about what you're doing. Those are the type of things that you have to do. Then I think you also have to have an internal process as well, where you're looking at those sorts of things, where our resources are going, and determining if those are the best things to be spending money on at that particular moment in time. Yeah,
kind of an ongoing task. And you jumped a little bit on my 11th question, which was the hiring challenges facing communities today. So I would maybe then say, what are some of the retention solutions that you've put in practice in your past positions?
Yeah, I mean, what you're trying to do is you're trying to make your organization, the organization of choice within the community, to try to recruit as much talent as you possibly can. And so that starts with culture. I'm forgetting the famous person who said it, but culture is king when it comes to organizations. Yeah. And I think that what you do that by making it a place that people don't want to leave, number one, and number two, that's attractive to folks when they're starting out their careers or wanting to make a change. You do that by being an inclusive organization that makes sure that everybody knows that they're a valued part of the organization, that you work on your benefits as much as you can, that you have the best benefits you can possibly afford, to make sure that folks are taken care of that way, and you want to make a workplace where people feel valued and have a purpose, that you're defining your purpose, and that they're driving forward towards it. And I think that those are the things that you have to work on in terms of really making your organization the organization of choice. And then on the ancillary things, you're doing the recruitment stuff, so you're reaching out to specific communities. You're trying to make sure that your message is getting out to those that might not otherwise see it, and bringing those folks into your organization. And you can do that through a variety of ways.
Yeah, yeah, incredibly important work as we look ahead and think about shifting demographics, not only in Janesville but nationally.
Yeah.
I mean, just demographic trends, and so that'll be of utmost importance. And you talked a little bit about engaging and connecting with citizens by way of service surveys. What are some interesting ways that you've learned of residents' priorities? Going through your careers, I'm sure maybe once you get recognized, people will stop and tell you.
Yeah.
But some of those things.
Yeah, I mean, people stop you in the street and talk about it. I mean, it all varies about how you find out. I think that the best times are when you're having conversations with folks where, like, for example, like, let's say I go and give a presentation to the Rotary Club or something about what's going on in the city. So that's good. You know, you give a presentation, you take some questions, there's a little bit of back and forth, but the real conversation happens when you're sitting there eating lunch.
Yeah.
And you have an individual saying, I had this problem and and the city, took way too long to take care of it. And you kind of find out more about that, and you can kind of bring that back, and it kind of holds in the back of your mind, and you try to figure out if that's a real issue or if it's like a one-off type of thing. I think those are the type of things that where you learn, where if you're paying attention, those things happen.
Yeah.
In Waukesha, we did this thing called the Celebrate Waukesha Breakfast, where it was a city-focused thing where we had a lot of stakeholders come in for a breakfast meeting, and we had a topic where we do a presentation or something on it. But the key thing about that was the breakfast.
Yeah.
And you had all these mover and shakers in town having breakfast together for 30 minutes before we had the presentation. And there was just some great connections that were made in those rooms that really made a difference. I'm going to tell you one quick story about something that I'm really, really proud of. And the person that was involved with this told me about this. So in Waukesha, we had this 125th anniversary celebration, right? And as part of the year-end celebration, we had like a ball. We had a event, a celebration event, where you had dinner and auctions and all that sort of stuff. It was a great event, and I met the executive director of Habitat for Humanity in Waukesha, which is in Waukesha County, which is the organization that helps build homes for home ownership for lower income folks. And she was talking about the challenges of this project that they were working on, and they were looking at this piece of property, and she reminded me that I said, well, I think I can help with that. That was the start of a project that the city ended up partnering with Habitat on and making some connections with them to do 22 affordable homes in a neighborhood in Waukesha that are being built over the next couple of years. And the first 2 homes are in the ground right now. And it happens to be 3 blocks from my house. I walked by it this morning when I was walking my dog. And that started at a conversation at an event where, I took the time to listen and learn about it, and then try to make connections to move it forward. And I think that's where, a lot of those things happen. That's where those connections happen.
Yeah, really a powerful, example, illustrative of a project there that you could quite literally walk by that comes from a conversation, and that's really where those opportunities are. As important as perhaps the State of the City speech is, I think that time before and after where you really engage and connect, I think is so powerful. And
for sure.
I think maybe folks also might be interested, our viewers at home, they know the city manager, they know the role, they see you at a council meeting. What is the typical day of a city manager in practice? What's your day like?
I mean, I think it's classic to say, but it's true, is there is no typical day.
Yeah.
The thing that is the most fun for me is doing like the staff development work.
Right.
And then working on really interesting redevelopment or development deals. Those are the things that I really enjoy the most. But again, there is no typical day.
Yeah.
I geek out on financial data, and so I'll sit there and I'll look at the financial reports that our wonderful finance department puts out. I like to do the analysis part of that. And so your day is kind of, the thing about being a city manager and how I describe it to the students that I teach is that you're a generalist.
Yeah.
You know a little bit about a lot of things, or you know a little bit, you know enough to be dangerous
Right.
about a lot of the things, and you're relying on professional experts in their fields to help you make the best decision possible. And so the day can consist of doing everything from, you know, interviewing for a position, you know, doing a training class with a group of folks, negotiating some sort of economic development deal,
Yeah.
you know, having meetings with stakeholders about a particular issue, and all of the things in between. And it's just, one of the things that's great is that I feel like working in city government, you're a chief executive with a higher purpose.
Yeah.
That you're giving back to your community, and that it's really helping communities shape and grow in a really important way.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that ultimate thing past the double bottom line, or it's that really, you're at the end of the day, it's the people.
Yeah.
Over any sort of traditional private corporate profit. And I think that's rewarding. Certainly speaking to the jack of all trades, right? When it comes to that, it's dynamic, but it's engaging, and it makes,
Exactly.
I think, every day probably fun and different. And as we approach, I think, the end of our time, Kevin, I would just, again, take a bit of a step back and say, you know, you're in this position 3 months now, but looking to the years ahead, I mean, do you have any visions for Janesville? Where do you see our community going 5, 10 years down the road?
Yeah, I mean, I think that what we're very fortunate with is that the folks that have been here before me have really moved the ball forward in a significant way.
Yeah.
And so what we're doing is trying to keep momentum going and focusing on the things that are going to continue to make Janesville grow and prosper.
Right.
And so obviously we have to figure out how to redevelop the GM Jatco site.
Yes.
That's a huge issue, and I think that we have to do that very carefully and considerately, and to move the ball forward on that, and to move the community forward around that, those sorts of things. I think that we have to continue to build on the success that we've had downtown. I think that there are opportunities there to add housing to the mix, and to make that an even more dynamic environment that will support our businesses and that sort of stuff. And then I think that we need to be very aggressive and continue along the path that we have been around economic development.
Yeah.
We have incredible assets here in the city. We have land. We have folks that are really connected to the city, that want to work here and live here and raise their kids here. And I think that we just need to build on those sorts of things. So if you look at that, we have just incredible progress that has been made. And really what we're doing is refining that vision as we move forward to continue it to keep it going for the next 5 and 10 years.
Yeah, moving down the field and taking advantage of whether that's land, logistics, you know, opportunities from where we just are as a community, or the development and the collaboration we see in downtown, and hopefully to come on the GM Jatco site. The vision is there, and we'll keep on moving forward. Well, thank you, Kevin, for not only stopping by the program, but for your tremendous guidance so far, and all you have in store for the community. Very fortunate to be here with you and to have your knowledge and vision, and so I'm excited to see what we can accomplish.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. I enjoyed my time.
Oh, wonderful. And I also want to thank you, our viewers and residents, for tuning in today and for all you do to help make Janesville a community of choice to realize life's opportunities. I invite you to stay connected with the city by following us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, signing up for emergency notifications from the JPD via the Nixle app, and registering to receive our weekly city press releases by visiting www.janesvillewi.gov/email lists. For Park Place Views in the city of Janesville, I'm Nick Faust. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you again next month.